South Africa's pass rate is only 30%. Now, I want to dive into cause and effect. What is the effect of that cause? 35% of our teachers teaching our kids are underqualified. 20% of our educators in the system today are not fit to be educators. On today's episode, I want to dive into the data and I want to compare our children, our kids, competing versus the likes of China, US, Japan, and first world countries. So what is the cause and the effect? On today's episode, as always, Anna Marie Meyer.
Thank you so much.
Before we get into the content, I want to just be a little bit different on this video. At the end, we are going to make 9 recommendations on how we feel our education system can improve so that 30% goes drastically up and we put our future in the best possible hands that we can. Hope you enjoyed this episode and I hope it brings value to you. Let's get into it. There has been massive petitions signed to reduce the 30% pass rate, even lower, to give our children the opportunity of a tertiary education, which is highly confusing to me.
It's ridiculous.
How are you going to go and get a tertiary education if you can't pass by getting 30%? It is mind-boggling.
30%. It should be 50%, like most of the rest of our world.
Potentially higher, because
Potentially higher.
if we are to start competing, meaning not waiting for a handout and somebody to say, listen, because of XYZ, we're going to give you this. I'm talking about competing in manufacturing, competing in technology, competing in the sectors that are coming up today. At 30%, you cannot compete against the first world countries.
Do you really want to see a doctor that only knows 30%?
Maybe you want to fly with a pilot that wants to fly a jet but only knows 30% of the work.
Okay, and maybe I can't make that statement because with 30% you're not going to get into a medical profession. But still, if that is the pass rate in whatever profession you end up with, is that really where you want to put your hands in?
No.
I don't want to do that.
Absolutely
And I just think it's ridiculous. And then they preach to our children at school, if you just participate in class, you've already got 50%. So that's saying they don't do anything at home, they don't participate in class because the pass rate is 30%. What do they do with our kids at school during the day for them to indicate that we need to lower the system or lower the standards? I just don't agree with it, unfortunately.
So I think a grounding question for this episode, and potentially this gets shared to somebody that goes and thinks about it a little bit, is, do we want our children to pass? Okay? Or do we want our children to learn the material and understand the material? Because to me, lowering it to 30 and now considering lowering it even lower is we want our children to pass. Okay, so we want to green tick something that says X amount of kids passed matric this year. Okay, or do we want them to actually go in, study the content, become experts in their field of choice, study the content, and then grow into a career where they can be competitive against other economies, first internally and then externally? Or do we just want them to pass?
Well, currently it looks like we just want them to pass, but our children aren't competitive to the rest of the country, the rest of the world.
Let's take a look at that. So, school pass marks, South Africa versus the world. China, Japan, and Sweden, 60%. Okay, United States, 60%.
And we're halfway.
We're 30%. Yeah. Then we have countries like Canada, Belgium, Austria, Germany, Spain, Ukraine, Australia, and Nigeria at 50%. And then we come in at 30%. So the biggest economy in Africa's pass rate is lower than that of Nigeria.
It's ridiculous.
Okay. How long are we going to remain number one? Not very long.
No, we're not going to remain. My problem is what do we put into the new? And you know that I believe we need to put our children, our future is those kids that's at school now. So now we're lowering the standards. So where's our country going? And that's the only question. I think if they can't even answer that by lowering the standard, we've got a problem.
But I think the aim is not to educate the children. The aim is to get the children to pass, because that's two different outcomes. I'm gonna shock
They
you guys.
want 100% pass rate. That's all they want, and they look good.
Yeah, let's discuss them later. I want to give you more stats. Matric dropout figures in 2010. In 2010, grade 12 dropout figures went from 20,000 to 2011 down to 18,000. Okay, so it went down and continued going down until 2013, and it started rising in 2015. Take a guess what the dropout rate was last year. Dropout rate.
No idea.
So the lowest it was in 2011, which was around 17,000 students. It's nearly 120,000 students. So lowering...
But our standards...
Lowering the standards is not the answer. I don't know if you guys are getting this. Lowering the standards
is not the answer.
Is not the answer, because when you lower standards, more people leave. So when the standards were higher, less people left.
I spoke to a couple of 18-year-old kids about a week ago, and in the whole group, almost 50% of those kids indicated that they're rather going to go for a different matric than a South African matric. Why would you do that? Because it's recognized. Our matric is not recognized.
But how can it be recognized? Because 30% is the pass rate.
I came across stats on grade 4s. Now, unfortunately, it's 2016 stats. But 38% of kids in grade 4 can't read with meaning.
Yeah, that's scary.
It's scary. And that is our groundwork. So we on matric now at 30%. But our groundwork is when they enter school.
Again, cause and effect. So the teacher that is educating our kids had to get 30% to pass. That will be our future educators. That's the problem, because that's why 35% are not qualified, not properly qualified, and 20% are not fit to hold that position. But this is a different channel to the ones that you're used to. So we're not going to go and raise facts and statistics and complain just to make noise. We're going to make recommendations. So we've come up with 9. I'm sure there's going to be more, but we've come up with the best 9. So I'm going to shoot first. Improve access to quality education for all. So disadvantaged communities need to be in the same position as advantaged communities, meaning the government needs to use the budget that it was provided and buy textbooks. Make sure there are schools being built. Make sure that the resource is allocated, not only allocated, but used correctly, so that disadvantaged areas can also have an opportunity to learn from textbooks, use a computer, and understand how the world works today. It's not only about getting a vote. Let's go to that disadvantaged community. Let's get the vote, because they'll continuously vote for us. Unless you are empowered, you cannot ever make the vote again, but my kids don't have books.
But that is a current problem, and everyone is aware of it. So it's not new. It's been there for so long, and that is something they need to look at. That's the first thing. But as we mentioned the other day, we know the stats of every child that gets born. So we know in 7 years they're going to enter a school. So why don't they provide?
Number 2, increase the availability of vocational training and apprenticeship. So we run a cadetship program in our company, and this is what we've seen. And you'll never have a 100% pass rate, people that do qualify and remain with us, because this industry is tough, it's different, and it's suited to a certain personality. However, we are of the highest standard when it comes to our internship. 80% pass rate. So you come in, you do 2 weeks,
You need to get 80%.
You need to
so
get
it's not
80%.
80% pass. You need to get 80% to pass.
To pass. So if you get 78%, sorry, you're out. And then that qualifies you for the next 6 weeks course. Okay. But more companies should do this because
Fill that gap.
100%.
Fill that gap.
Because you can bring them from young and teach them the right way, build a good foundation. The problem is every single young person that goes and writes that exam or that test on the computer, the first thing they ask is, why is it 80%? Because that's the real
They're not
world.
used to it.
Because that's the real world. Because we don't need to employ you. We don't need to employ. We only employ the best of the best. Okay? And the problem is that's not the mentality brought in through that child's primary and high school. You just do enough, 30% pass. Cause and effect. Number 3, provide better career guidance and counseling services at school. So I remember it was, what is it today? It's grade 11. Grade 11, we had counselors that came in and you wrote certain psychometric tests and they said, okay, you're a more this type of a personality, you're a more that type of a personality. You don't tend to lean towards accounting, are we right? I'm like, my accounting marks are my accounting marks are not great. You should maybe look at a career of this spectrum, and then they guide you. However, if you want to improve, and that's the thing that made an impression to me, if you want to improve in this area, you're still very young, you can. This is what you need to do to be able to improve in this area. Should you pursue a career here, you've got some work to do. I think less and less of that is being done today. So that's one thing that, and I mean, stuff like that is not going to cost a tremendous amount of money to get people in just to do the standard 11s or grade 9s.
The grade 11s.
Yes.
But even with the grade 12s, because sometimes in grade 11, the change that child will go through, and they've got new perspective on life. Because it's not everyone that realize that they're going to be a doctor or engineer when they're in grade 9. Some kids only realize in grade 12 what they want to be, or maybe what they would love to do. So that is the 2 years that they need to look out for our children.
Number 4, invest in student support initiatives, mentoring programs, going and doing career days, going and organizing events, and say, okay, this is what it looks like in the corporate world. These are the steps. Even watch content. There's so much content that educators can bring into the school system. That this is what it looks like in the corporate world. This is a structure. This is a balance sheet. This is how it works. I think more of that will stimulate the young mind to say, okay, great. This is definitely exciting. I'm going to go and show interest, and I'm going to go and pursue more and more content of this type to see if this is for me. Number 5, increase access to higher education.
Where do they get the money from? Because that's going to be the next question.
100%. So this could be done through tuition assistance programs and scholarships, which would allow more students to pursue higher education. So companies, I believe, should go and put it out there and say, listen, we are looking for a whole bunch of accountants. These are the subjects to qualify for. These are the regions that we are looking to go and develop people in. This is the minimum requirement, and this is the course that we'll be able to help you with. Go for it. And then put it back in the students' hands. You want that scholarship? You want to go and become an auditor? Okay? Mom and dad maybe don't have the funds. Okay? But here's how you do it. And then you're going to have the opportunity to put in the work. And if you do, and you hit those grades, then you earned it. If you don't, then I'm sorry, then you're going to have to sweep streets because you didn't go and work hard and sat down and learned the content and got the 80 or 90% that was required. And that should be open for everybody.
But I also believe that in a scholarship, it's not only for the accountants. Let's take ourselves. We're in a studio.
100%.
We need people with marketing skills. So there's so much more out there that you don't, and it's not. We immediately think a scholarship, it's 100,000 Rand a year and it's a 5-year. But there's scholarships for lesser amounts, smaller industry. You just get people that would love to do just a normal admin position. They can grow over the years.
100%.
Not everyone is a qualified engineer but there's so much more out there. But we need to invest in our kids.
Invest in teacher training and development. Let's talk marketing. So you take a person with a marketing degree in 2017. They got honors in marketing. Okay, whatever they've learned is absolutely
Zero.
irrelevant today. So the educator that got their honors degree in teaching back in 2017 or back in 2010, how relevant is that degree today? In my opinion, not very relevant. So unless you're constantly redeveloping those teachers and getting that spark up and getting that heat to want to teach the children, unless you're constantly doing that, that intensity falls. And the current stuff that are important, that China is teaching their kids, that the US is teaching their kids, is not being taught here. Number 7, improve access to educational resources. I mean, textbooks, computers. I'm a huge YouTube fan. You can learn anything on YouTube. Improve the access. Allocate funds. Allocate funds. Go and say, we can't provide a computer for each and every student, but we can have a computer center with 5 computers. You want to work on it? No problem. Write your name here, and these are the times when you'll be allowed. Then you have to be intentional. This is what I'm going to go and do here.
That's a very important point, because I still, with interviews that we do, some kids have access to it, and you can immediately see the kids that don't have access. And those are the ones that struggle in any industry.
But even if you have access to it, be intentional with the little access that you have. So most schools have a computer center. Be intentional. I get to use the computer 90 minutes. This is what I want to get out of the 90 minutes. But teachers don't teach that. So what do kids go and do? They go and play games, Candy Crush, or whatever the new game is. I've just been hearing, but be intentional. What am I going to achieve in the next 90 minutes? Number 8, implement more rigorous curriculum standards. So the 30%, in my opinion, needs to rise, and quickly. It needs to go back to minimum 50%.
I think it's a non-negotiable.
It's a non-negotiable. Go back to 50% and make sure the standards. Let's look around. What is China teaching? I heard somebody say it. I can't remember, so I can't give you the love. But I heard somebody say the other day, it was in standard 4, standard 5. Chinese children are learning how to code.
Yes, they do.
Our kids are learning the exoskeleton of a locust. It's not the same. It's not the same. Those 2 kids entering the workforce, it's not the same. We stand no chance. We are going to be bulldozed 10 times out of 10.
Because we take kids up to the age of 18 in matric, and we try to give them a broad spectrum exposure. But at a certain level, you can see, and as you mentioned before, if there is more qualified people structuring and taking those kids through a plan to see what kind of jobs, education are available, you can get these kids into a practical, more open environment where they start practical, develop themselves into a specific guideline, into a specific group where they want to be. Because now we've got kids, and this was a discussion about a week ago, where we said we forced our children to take the maths and the accounting and the biology. But they want to become a teacher. Don't need that. You want to become a doctor, that's what you need. So a bit more structured. Because why do I need to find out in matric I've got these, well, I don't need it?
I've got a different opinion. So you don't know in standard 5 or 6
you don't
what
know.
you. So I think if it's up to me, if I'm head of education, those are the maths, the accounting, the science. It's a non-negotiable subject.
That is non-negotiable.
It's a non-negotiable subject. Even if you want to go and become whatever it is, those are life skills. You need to know how to count. You need to know how to do basic sums in your mind, no matter what job you're in.
Maths, the accounting, I'm fully for that. But then there's so many other things. The geography. Yes, I agree. We need to know because that's basic skills in life. But for
Up
me,
to a certain age.
up to a certain age. I don't say from grade 5, but as from a grade 10.
Yes.
That is, I would change the system so that you can rather start choosing in what kind of direction you want to go in. Because by then, you don't know what you want to be, but you can choose a direction.
100%. And then lastly, increase focus on life skills. So teaching people how to learn, teaching people how to research, teaching people how to make decisions, teaching people how to process is probably so overlooked.
It is overlooked.
That it's going to cause us to lose long term. So not knowing how to learn, not knowing how to, what they teach us is how to repeat. Remember, repeat. I passed the test. I don't need this in my life anymore. Rather than, what is the foundation that you're busy building with mathematics or with accounting? Okay, based on this, I can build on. These are the building blocks. All right, I'm interested in this subject. What are the 8 YouTube channels for free that I can go and study and become even better than my classmates that don't? Okay, understanding that if you go and put extra time into a certain subject, I was interested in business management. The other stuff, I pushed myself. I did my very, very best to pass. Still, while it was 50%, I did my best to pass. But business economics really interested me. And every single opportunity that I had to speak to the local guy, I worked at Spa. So I asked him, Uncle Jose, it was a Portuguese guy, very nice man. He paid me 10 Rand, 20 cents an hour. It was my first job. Uncle Jose, explain to me why you are buying today this many amounts of batteries. Okay, because we normally don't get a big order of batteries like this. He said, sure thing, no problem. Because if I buy this many, the supplier gave me a 30% discount. That means this doesn't have a very short shelf life. If I invest, I can make 30% more profit. And based on data, I'm going to sell these in X amount of months. Fascinating. That he had me. It's like, what else is on special? He says, watch the trucks. Watch the trucks. It had me. That time there was no YouTube for free that I can go in, but I asked questions from the relevant people.
But again, that's me and you interested in the subject of accounting and marketing and business economics.
That was my teacher. I disagree with you. I had a phenomenal business economics teacher, and she taught me that. She said to me, Bobby, if you're interested in the subject, ask questions. So big ups, Miss Phelan was her name, blonde lady. Miss Phelan said to me, if you're interested about business, the best way to find out about business is people that run businesses. So when you're doing your summer job, ask questions. So I'm packing bags, and when I catch Uncle Jose, I said, sir, do you have 5 minutes? Yes, I do. I noticed batteries. Why are we pushing so many batteries? 30% discount. And he was nice enough.
Asking questions.
But the teacher gave me that life skill. If you're interested, ask questions.
And this is exactly why I love this channel. Because this starts off with a pass rate that's too low, far too low. And we agree upon that. But then we end up backing it up. Am I right to say? Our teachers play a role. Because one teacher made a huge impact on one person. So if we can just get that better and not get teachers with a pass rate of 30 teaching our kids.
100%.
Do you agree?
100 cause and effect. Because my teacher that taught me business economics didn't have a pass rate of 30. Miss Phelan was a phenomenal teacher. She was passionate, 100% passionate, and she knew her stuff because she didn't just pay enough attention to be able to get the job. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a little bit longer than scheduled. If you stuck around until this point, thank you very much for sharing your time with us. If you like the content, hit the like button as well as do leave us a comment. And
please subscribe to our channel and ring the bell.
Thank you very much. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.